Hello, I'm actually on time today. Uh, so, I'm gonna have fun today, and I'm sorry, but I've been having fun before you arrived. And sometimes I do that. I wake up in a worky mood, so I put in some work on this already, right? So I'm making fairy stickers, and last week I did a design live stream as well, and I was doing a series of stickers that I wanted to sell in my little shop. And they were based on, I hadn't actually, I was only starting the designs on last week's um, design thing, but I ended up getting them done fairly quickly and got them all onto a sticker sheet. And the sticker sheet um, would take up to they were selling it really as the deal was you could get 5 stickers on the sheet, but I managed to get away to get more stickers on the sheet. But I didn't have any problems doing the illustrations at all, and I was very happy with the illustrations. The theme was um I called it Thinking of Summer because I had a lino cut, a drawing and a painting called Thinking of Summer. And I wanted this along the same theme. And the theme was cows, sheep, and shepherds and shepherdesses. So I thought that was a cute theme for stickers. And I am my own demographic um, when I'm selling things because my stuff is kind of got a fine art orientation. Although last week I was talking about what I see as kind of differences in my work between fine art and um, illustration. So these are illustrations of these stickers. Now, that's obviously not the stickers, but I talked about how I was going to get the stickers to market. If you want to see the finished stickers, there's a link to the Etsy shop underneath, and you can see the finished stickers there. Or you can hike over to the community tab and see a preview of what they look like over there as well. Tell you what I'm looking for at the moment. I'm looking for a little light because I think that might be showing up a bit dark on the screen. And it's only starting to brighten up today. It's been kind of a rainier, sort of slightly darker day, um, which I don't mind because we've had a lot of sun. So this might be interrupted by the postman arriving because some of my products are I have test orders out, and I did get a message saying one of the orders would be in today. So I think it's the postcard might be in today. So if the postie arrives in the middle of this, I'll just mute you for a second, run out and get it, and of course I'll show you how the thing looks. But today, sorry, I'm just there. That lighting's a bit better, I think, isn't it? So so that was grand, right? Today, let's talk about today. And I'm a wiser woman approaching this fairy thing today because I now know how that print situation works with the stickers and in particular the design end of it because there's a drag and drop interface in the design part of it. They have a design template. The company have a design template and um there are always going to be constraints, where you have that kind of a situation. You can't just do anything you want. And the constraint turned out to be kind of irritating because it wants you to do 5 layers on something. So if I think I had 12 images, 12 or 13 images on my stickers. Um, I had to put in some work grouping them in such a way and the placement on the page and everything that um, they would fit on 5 layers rather than doing each image separately, which is what I had wanted to do. So that was a bit of an extra headache, but I got through it. I'm a wiser woman this end. But today we're going to get some fairy help, and I'm going to put on my little fairy necklace to see if that creates a bit of fairy look for me. And my fairy necklace comes with fairy dust locked inside it. Now, that adds the magic. But I am not going to be sprinkling fairy dust on my designs for these stickers because I want to talk to you about my thinking about this design, and it's a good conversation to have, I think, because you want to know what you're aiming for. I was talking about this last week, knowing what you're aiming for with your potential customer, right? But what you're aiming for artistically yourself with designs, right? Design wise, what you're happy with. And this is the difference, maybe between an artist designer and a designer, because sometimes um, in marketing, they tell you to focus on the needs of the market first and whatever the customer wants, and that you will change everything around to suit the customer. And I was talking about last week saying that it's more important to me that my artistic integrity remains and that I get a product that I personally like. Um, Whether or not the public actually like it, or whether it's a product that has the maximum desirability quality that the marketplace wants. So, for example, doing something like um, adding a lot of like this glitter on this um, page here, adding a lot of glitter onto something. Um, might be very attractive for a teenage or younger buyer, right? And they buy things as well, or people buy presents for them and so on. And a lot of adults like glittery things as well. Female adults love glitter, but I want to avoid the glittery end of fairiness, right? Which sounds like sacrilege, I know. But I am going for a very nichey kind of thing. Now, fairies, I was going to say they've been done to death, but you can't kill a fairy. Um, but I have very specific type of fairy I want to do because there are different types of fairies. The ones that I see most commonly in shops that you can get stickers in, right, are the glittery fairy, the fairies that have maybe borders in silvery or goldy, shiny colors, metallic looking, everything blingy going on, you can have going on. They stick it in with fairies, and that's all very nice and everything. But the market is saturated with that kind of thing, and I don't like it that much because I think it's very. Um, some of it is kitschy and tasteless and everything now. We're talking about fairies, so we're in kitschy, tasteless land here because there's so there's so many fairies out there, aren't there? They're everywhere, fairies. But what I'm really interested in is the Victorian fairy. I think Victorian fairies win hands down as the nicest fairies, and they had to compete with sort of pagan fairies or Celtic fairies, um, and your sort of manga, modern, sparkly bling fairies. So, they're still holding their own despite being around for a very long time. And somebody like Cicely Mary Barker or Baker, her name was, um, a I think she was a Victorian lady who brought out a book that I can't think came out in the late 20s called Complete Guide to Fairies, and she had um, spring, summer, autumn, and winter fairies, and she may have been one of the people that brought it sort of artistically to our modern vision of what fairies look like, right? So her stuff is worth looking at, but I didn't want to look at it too much because when I came across it, I went, oh no, she's already done fuchsia fairies, and I want to do fuchsia fairies, so now I can't. So I had a big problem with this. Then I said, okay, well, hang on now. I'm going to have to look at a few of her things. And I must have seen this before to even have this kind of idea of fairies as being about this for me. And that's my favorite fairy. So I'm sure I must have seen her work before, but I never owned a fairy book or anything as a kid and don't have any fairy books now. And well, it just wasn't really my thing. I was kind of a kid into animal stories and things more than fairies, because I liked adventure stuff. But actually, fairies are pretty adventurous characters. Um, and this is what appeals to me about them as an adult. And I'm going to show you my approach, right? Because it's very handy seeing another designer's approach to doing this. And I'll show you some of the influences, right, that I have been using. And you might be surprised. One of them, I mentioned that Cicely Mary Barker or Baker person with the complete guide to fairies. Um, There's also, I'm sure it's around the same time the pre-Raphaelites were doing the kind of work that they were doing, fed very much into the fairy mentality, right? Because the Victorians just loved fairies. And there are a lot of my fairies are kind of for the, not for kids. So there's not going to be in my stickers, there's not going to be loads of little kid fairies running around. There might be a kid or two sneaks into it, but there'll be adult female fairies in it as well. And this kind of a face and very free hair and in kind of wild flowers and things like that, that kind of idea I want to use. And um, for the pre-Raphaelites, you mightn't have thought of this because maybe you don't think about fairies too much. But for the pre-Raphaelites, it's surprising maybe their sources. They were very into the classical world. And I don't know, can you see this reference here? But this is a little head on a coin, and it is a coin of Syracuse from the 5th century BC. Greek coin. And this is where I got my today's thing that I'm transferring to make my into my main sticker on that sticker page because there's a sticker sheet I'm working on. My main sticker, the head is actually inspired by this. Now, the head I'm doing is going to be all color, but to show you the kind of color in this one, the last um, sheet of stickers I did had this kind of a sepia look to them, right? For that very kind of, it's an old, quaint kind of a look that I want. And I want to carry the old, quaint look through to these fairy stickers, but I want them to be a bit more colorful. Okay. So, um, this Greek head, I am going to colorize it, right? And have all pretty colors in it. So, there are also going to be some fuchsia because it's fairies and fuchsia. So fuchsia are flowers, if you just in case you don't know, and they're spelled very oddly. It's not terribly satisfying the way the word fuchsia is spelled, but that's now. Here's one freshly pressed from yesterday, and you can see it has a very intense, bright color. But I want to fade that back slightly to have a kind of slightly aged look, the way I had with my um, thinking of summer stickers. And this is because I want this old world kind of look, because my stickers for this one, I want them to look like a thing that you used to put in the front page of books if you owned a book. And they were a type of sticker that they were a gummed back paper thing that were like a frontispiece for a book, and you would write into it such that Donna Emerald owns this book. But it was a pretty little design that you actually stuck into the first inside page of your book to show who owned it. That's what I want to do with my stickers. See, I'm going for very much a niche that's my look. I'm not trying to compete with all those glitzy um, shiny fairies. And I'm not trying to make my fairies look like other people's fairies. Uh, they do, in everybody's psyche, definitely a Western kind of a psyche. Um, when you think of fairies, there's going to be a few kinds of images come to your mind about what a fairy looks like. But I'm going to know what I want to get before designing. So this is what I've arrived at. Now this is going to be my main sticker, and it's much larger than I want it, because I'm going to scan it in and then reduce the size of it, and then all the detail and everything. It'll be really nice high resolution, and there'll be lots of detail in it, and it's easier to work on if you work a little bit bigger and then reduce down. So I guess I would like that sticker to be maybe this size, that kind of size there, so that if I had, this is actually quite a small book here, if I had a book like this, that the inside page, it wouldn't fill it up. But this sticker is going to be the main sticker in the middle of that sticker sheet, and the stickers peel off that sheet, but they're presented to the customer on that sheet. So that'll be in the middle, and then a few other stickers around it. Okay, so I kind of have an idea already just from working on that initial idea. It's grown into something. So this is kind of weird shape around it is supposed to be like a fuchsia kind of flower, all kind of curled up around her, to give the impression that this is kind of a fairy mother, if you like, figure, um, kind of contained in this kind of fantasy bubble, if you like. But when you look at it, if you know your art history, it has Art Nouveau kind of influences, like these curvy shapes and everything, that have a very designed illustration look to them. So I want to go with that very designed look. And this is only the tracing for it, of course. So the other prominent thing on the page, just because it will be the only bit of text, will be the words fairies and fuchsia. And so that is how, when you look at the sticker sheet on my shop, that you know what that page is about instantly, because some of the fairies might not be standardized fairies. They might all have, I don't know, butterfly wings like some fairies have. There mightn't be little stars and twinkly bits on them like some fairies have. There mightn't be glitter or metallic bits like some fairies have. But there'll be enough information there, including the use of the word fairies, to know what you get. So when you look at my sticker sheet, you're going to see some fairies and you're going to see some fuchsia. So they're going to have a link, aren't they? So they're going to be fairies in the garden, basically. But I have managed to confine my topic to only have them play around with fuchsia and not do loads and loads of. Oh, will you look who's in chat? Haven't seen you in ages. It's so nice to see you again. And thank you for the nice compliment about the stickers. This is going to be such fun today doing the fairy one. Terrifying as well, because everybody's done fairies so well, you know. So you kind of, I'm forever saying you have to make something your own, but this is quite a tricky one to make your own. So what I'm relying on is how well other people did it and who did fairies that I really, really admire. And I really like those um, complete guide to fairies. Haven't seen the paintings. They're really very good because there were a lot of very good um, botanical artists around at the time, many of whom were female. And they like doing stuff I like doing. So I could get into it that way and relax about it, and say, okay, well, for example, with this, I can go wild with my collection of dried fuchsia. You see, there's a dried white one. And I actually, you get a laugh out of this because I collect flowers and dry them. But I've tried a new thing making soap for myself. Um, and the soap is supposed to look like lovely, soap with flowers in it. But look, mine looks like a jellyfish. It came out kind of green. This is done with flowers that are a couple of years old and were falling apart and getting a bit papery. And I said, no, it'd be lovely to make soap with them. But I shine the light on it, see can you see through them at all? Hardly at all. That's supposed to be transparent, that soap. But look, doesn't it look like a jellyfish? So, well, you don't care when they're for personal use, do you? I mean, they look quite nice that way up on the soap dish when they're wet, but otherwise they just look like something that, you don't want to step on the beach. But that's what I use some of the dried flowers for at the garden. But if I can find, I have a load of them that I was going to show you, and I don't know where the heck I put them. I have sheets and sheets of various flowers, but I was going to show you a few more fuchsia than that. And I have fresh ones. Um, you see, I've other things I could work in if I wanted to. These are the decisions you have to make about these things. Are you going to work in little other botanical things as details as well? And I have so many lovely things, like even a little piece of grass is such an interesting thing to paint that you become like this Victorian botanical painting lady when you're doing these kinds of subjects. And nothing wrong with that. It's like you just pretend you're in a Merchant Ivory film and, Room with the View or one of these things where they're constantly showing English country gardens and things. Well, it's all very civilized and nice. But I still wanted to relate to today. So these are still things that I want people to still want, you know what I mean? But that are good enough quality of illustration that um, people will go, oh, okay, I can see, where I could use that sticker, but I just want it because it's so beautiful. So I'm hoping my fairies will kind of I'll have the luck of the fairies and they'll help me out. And so, like, I have the mummy fairy kind of figured out. I have been using with those fuchsia, I was using a combination of these watercolor pens, which are a jewel tip kind of thing, thick and a thin end. And my watercolors, um, and inks as well. So it is a little bit mixed media-ish, but got a very watercolor plus drawing look of it, right? And that's what I want because I want the detail in them to look very non-digital. So, already it's harking back to an earlier age, but I've had to give the customer clues about how to use these stickers because I don't think it's immediately evident from looking at the stickers, even considering that one was going to be a much smaller size. what, you're going, well, what do I stick that on? It doesn't really look, I don't know, um, something laptop worthy. It doesn't, it's not big enough for a decal. So what do you use it for? And I have given a kind of a clue to it on this one. There's a section here that says uh, your fairy name here, right? So you write your name there. So this would be a sticker, you see, that somebody would use to mark something as being a piece of their property. So typically a book or a notebook or something like that. So I think I'm making the usage of it clearer. You wouldn't get that from the size the thing is at the moment, but that's just to be able to work on it. And as I say, it's getting transferred at the moment to be able to work on it at that size and then scan it and reduce down the size to the size, the finished size I want. So I'm doing the transfer of this one, not with the carbon paper I often use, but with ordinary pencil. Because I'm working with watercolors and inks, I want to be able to get rid of that initial drawing if I want to, you see. So that is one thing, and I might get to start that, do that today. But I want to talk to you about. Okay, so just before I move on to other things I'm going to do first. Oh, here are my flowers. Look, you see, some of these are a couple of years old, so um, they're all nice references as well as fresh stuff. You see, so the fuchsia are only just coming out here. But I have been kind of studying fuchsia, let's say, for a few years, and that little necklace, I made that little necklace with the fuchsia in it. And these are wonderful for drawing. So the nice thing about dried things for botanical studies are that they're not going to wilt any further. The colour changes very radically, but I happen to think that's rather lovely because this one is only a couple of hours old, but I'm not looking for that pumped up colour. I want the slightly faded colour to be part of the look to imply that kind of aged thing. These stickers should look like they came out of the Victorian era. you know? I mean, obviously they're presented in a modern format and everything. It'll be obvious they're not Victorian, but they should give off those vibes. And even like simple things like daisies are lovely. You see, you could get very lost and want to incorporate all those kinds of flowers into the thing, but I don't want it to be um, to go too far abroad. I want to keep this sticker sheet with just fairies and fuchsia. And what I propose to do with the fuchsia is to have a few. I've actually managed to smudge that somehow already, but have a few drawn fuchsia um, and a few um, real pressed fuchsia and glue them onto the page and then scan the thing. So these are going to function in, remember me talking about the bullet journal? And they are going to function like, I'm just getting the bullet journal to show you again so you know this is what they're supposed to sort of go with, or an example of a usage of them. So typically a bullet journal can be a very colourful affair if you want it to be. Oh, you got one of the necklaces. Oh, I hope you still like it. I still wear this fairy one a lot. Um, I didn't do any more of these glitter in it though because a lot of my flowers don't. They're very slightly too long for the little pendants I put them in, and I only managed to do a few of them before I decided, no, it's very unlikely I'm going to be able to get flowers small enough for that particular style of pendant often enough. And so you have a very much collector's piece because there's only like two or three of those left in existence, and they're only ever wear about five. And all the ones that had imperfections in them, I kept them for myself. So even the little one I'm wearing at the moment, for luck, if I just show it to you again, has little tiny perfections in the front of it that wouldn't be good enough to sell in the shop. You see this? But I love it because it catches the light with the glitter in it, and it's so delicate. Oh, you pressed your orchids. Yeah, that'd be fantastic thing to do to frame it. And it would be spectacular on black. I dried out an orchid flower, and all the leaves had separated, but I dried out the different leaves, and it I can see how they'd be amazing on black because you can see the veins and everything in them. And there's even another way of drying flowers that uh, I had a lot of success in before my microwave broke, but not from this. um, I must point out, you can dry flowers in microwave. So I don't know if you have a microwave, but um, try that because they dry in seconds. But what happens is they keep their color very well. And if you dry them and then press them, you keep more of the color in them. So if you had a particularly colorful flower that you wanted to keep a color in, like little, I don't know, violets or something like that, that are, very stunningly bluey, purpley color. Um, that microwave technique I thought worked really well. But I love all the botanical stuff. I'm nursing my orchids at the moment. Um, you know what happened, Marlena? They were in a soil that must have been treated with a chemical because I just picked up, it was ornamental bark that I just picked up a golf course or somewhere like that, picked up a little bit of it, and my orchids got sick immediately. So I reckon it was doused with some sort of a chemical. So I had to wash all the bark out and everything. And I um my orchids haven't been right since. So I have them taken out of all the soil now, and they're all in little pots in water, regrowing their roots stronger. And I gave them treatments of turmeric and all this to help. So I'm nursing them back to health, and they'll be fine. They're actually very robust. The type I have are very robust orchids. But yeah, I don't have the orchid flower on me. That's in one of my books there somewhere. But that'd be lovely. I'm not on Twitter at the moment, or I'd ask, can I see it on Twitter when you have that done? But it's such a nice hobby that, because it's nature's art. So this is a very relaxing thing for me and a very nice thing coming into midsummer, which is a very magical time, really. Oh, they're being dried out at the moment. They're at an in between stage. There's another little, see the pink fuchsia dry out a very weird papery yellow. So I might have to get fresh ones for that, press them and scan them quite quickly because I don't know if I want to go that yellow, although a few of those would be nice. But what the fuchsia are being used for in the journal are bullet point type things, right? Because part of the thing with these stickers is that they're a functional thing as well. So I want to use them as a potential bullet point or section markers. um, I want people to be able to see the usefulness of that. Or say you're reading a book or something and you have a particular chapter that's special or something, you can mark it with one of those stickers. Um, Hearts are going to come up as well because fairies are very loving little things, aren't they? So I think we'll work some hearts in. So I'm allowing myself that indulgence. So you could say fairies, fuchsia, and hearts. No ferns, unfortunately. You see, I'll start going all over the place if I introduce too many things in. So let's say you had a row of three or four of those going down, right? Um, Two sizes, maybe, I've two drawings, two sizes, two different directions. People usually mark things in bullet journals on the left hand side of something, but they could mark them on the right hand side. My other idea is that um, I'll just draw it on the back of this. If I have a fuchsia there, right? And this is very important in design process, being just roughly drawing things out. So if I have a fuchsia there, that I might do these like a panel. And actually that happened the last sticker set I did, this kind of idea happened as a constraint of something that I had done by mistake, but that I liked when it happened. And this panel idea I like because this is another thing people do in bullet journals and in books. I might do a couple of them that have a little blank panel with a border on it, and the fuchsia or the fairy, whatever. Well, it might be just the fuchsia for the bullet pointy things would be nice. Imagine that fuchsia up here in the corner with black bordery stuff happening behind it, or green maybe would be better. That would be a peel out thing that you stick into a journal or a notebook or whatever, you know. And that would be quite functional as well because somebody has their to-do list on it or their address or something important, you know. Um, but I do want a few just uh, just bullet point style fuchsia. So I might have a little row of fuchsia as one of my 5 layers I'm allowed to design. Then the main fairy, probably a layer of her own. The fairies in fuchsia might be it might be able to be grouped with something else, because if I only am allowed 5 layers for the design, I have to think out what the placement of things on the page is. So what I propose to do is do all the designs in a nice free way first, just um, draw my ideas and enjoy drawing and painting my ideas, and then say, okay, well, how are they going to work together? And what way am I going to scale them? Then what way am I going to lay them out on the page? Because I know the size of the page now. Um, and the page is, I don't have the exact dimensions on me, but it is pretty much the dimensions of that journal page, you see. So it relates to these dimensions. So I like that because I'm able to tell by just looking at the design page. I'm able to say, well, okay, if I have the things laid out like this when I'm looking at the designer page, um, I'm able to tell by proportions what size the thing would be. Because funny enough, they don't give you inches and centimeters for each thing as you scale it. So they're the kinds of constraints you have to work with when you're using um, a drag and drop interface from one of these print on demand people, see. So then the other thing, I know I've not done any drawing, but you see, this is design. So it's very important to talk about how you approach the design. So phase one of that was drawing the thing out from that, inspired by that coin, the head on the coin, and then just, doing a fairly free drawing from it, working out that I wanted to have this kind of feeling, which is a Renaissancey feeling as well, that having an arm projecting from kind of the picture plane, if you like, but also a very Bloomsbury set feeling, a very what did I say it was called? Pre-Raphaelite. So they're pre-Raphaelite fairies, very much so. So from that initial drawing, then this developed. That was traced from the other drawing. Other things, other ideas. So we have the fuchsia in different positions, the original fuchsia dried as well, and they're going to be the bullet pointy things. And then we want other fairies, don't we? So what are these weird swirls about? So This these weird swirls where I was actually fixing something. I have a little Buddha statue and his bottom fell out. he's he's very old at this stage and part of his bottom fell off and I had some DAS clay, air drying clay, and fixed his bottom and got some acrylic paint to match the color. And I was just swirling those around and often um, if you're in the middle of a design project, this can be how it happens that an idea suggests itself to you if you just stay open, to the idea. So, I'm thinking about fairies and I'm doing this, so I'm going, yeah, and that's like the moon. I knew I wanted to do fairies in the moon because fairies come out on uh, Midsummer's Eve, actually. But all around Midsummer, there's a lot of fairy activity. And, obviously being shy little creatures, they do a lot of playing at night. And they never go to bed on time or anything anyway, because fairies are sort of slightly naughty by default. They're harmless, but naughty. So they're like hanging out, looking at the moon. So, I might come along and do some sort of moonlit fairy, you see, who's looking at the moon on a fuchsia plant. Pretty it up a bit more than that, but you get the idea. So you manage to get some moon and maybe stars in, and fairy looking at the moon on a bendy fuchsia. So um, some of the thing about these, right, that would be what makes them uh, gives them their charm might be that um, you have to put in some details about that plant that are kind of um, it's kind of botanical painting in a way. Like I'm not great at botanical painting, but I do like observational stuff. So you would be looking at a lot of, I'm doing it at exactly the right time of year. I'd be looking at a lot of fuchsia and the way they hang off leaves and things like that, and doing little drawings from them. And, then doing my little figures. And I have the other issue about what way to dress the fairies. And the fairies are pretty rapper like fairies with the Greek influence. So we kind of have that solved, right? And say we had, even for the little kiddie fairies, I think I don't like the Victorian solution if they have them in little dresses that look like the sort of little dresses kids might wear in Victorian times to play tennis or something, or else they look like night dresses or something. I don't really want that. I want it all a little bit more Greek than that, but we're still going with the flowy thing. But they might be not so much kids, right, as um, sprite-like things, right? So they might have qualities of things like moths. And I was looking at a lovely one here, if I can find it again. I had a big pile of books to show you some of the influences, and perhaps it's just here, just down here. Perhaps it's most important to point out that um, when designing things, this is what you're doing. You're saying, oh, I want to see a picture, this, that, the other thing, this, that, and going through them all. So, like things like butterflies, different sorts of butterfly wings, I was looking at, because that big main picture there had a little butterfly in it. And I was sort of saying, well, what sort of butterfly do I see it as? You have to be able to see the thing very well for this particular sort of illustration. And I think I might end up with this kind of veined wing, pretty sort of thing, because I'm sort of steering away from um, the most obvious choices if I possibly can. I want to just put little different twists and things. and see stuff like this. Isn't that wonderful? Um, Now, watch your one, Cicely, Mary, whatever, that did the complete fairies book, um, did as solutions to things was, say she liked this mop, she might work that in by having the fairy in like a white dress that has a fringed bottom and wings like that, and make it an actual feature. And her fuchsia fairies, they were wearing a little fuchsia dress. There were kids wearing a little fuchsia dress. So I want to steer clear of that because I want to do something different. But at the same time, I think I'd like to use details from nature. So something like those wings, I might say, oh yeah, I'd really like those wings for this fairy here. And so I know that with that one, I might like white wings, and that this fairy is about being white and diaphanous, you see. So you get to do a lot of drawing then with this. And it could be like a fairy that's about a windy day, then, you see. So you could have all the bells gone. And then you say to yourself, well, hang on, there's another idea with the bells of the flower. And we're still in the brainstorming stage, you see. I was talking about the brainstorming stage last time. And have you noticed with fuchsia that they have these? Isn't that fun? Because you can make nice little bells, can't you? And have fairies hanging out of them. So if you can figure out how to do that, see, you have to be okay at drawing to do this, because you have to be able to do things like imply fairies on tiptoes and things like that, ringing bells. So the rough ideas sort of develop as you go along. So then you're also looking at the shape of the thing and saying, well, that would leave that shape. So is that going to be a useful shape, or is it going to take up too much of my sticker page using it on that? Um, the doing moonlight little panel, is that a good idea? Which actually I think that's a super idea, because I like the idea of very dark contrast one in relation to other ones. So basically it's one big thing with a lot of different panels happening around it, and the fairies and fuchsia thing prominently displayed. So the reason that I did this in pink pen, it's not that I'm going to do the final design in pink, it's that I had it originally in pencil, and when I was transferring the thing, I had to be able to see the pencil on the front, and if the grey on the back was showing through, it wasn't going to work, was it? And I also knew that I was going to be doing this sort of a thing in pen to try and get the colour to push through, and I wouldn't remember which bits I had done and which bits I hadn't done. So, trying to think what else I can tell you about the design process that I found out that might be useful to you. Um, well, I'd say the shipping time is fast, only that postcard was supposed to arrive today from Latvia, and I only ordered it the other day. So the shipping time, I'd say, was very fast, but I mean, the postman hasn't actually arrived yet, so I don't know. And I did have a problem with shipping before, but because I hadn't input my address properly, so problem was on my end of things. Now, if you were looking to do this end of things fast, right? If you were just working this out in terms of man or woman hours that it took you to do, um, this probably wouldn't be a great project, you know, if profit was your motive, unless you sold loads and loads. And I suppose I should talk about that because I didn't really the last time that um, advertising, right? That sometimes people have unrealistic expectations. It depends on what platform you're on, but for many platforms, the case is that unless you're advertising, you cannot expect the customers to find you, that they don't just organically find you. Unless, if you see this, the advantage of not being in, if you weren't in a niche, if you had your market of people really well sussed out, um, and you had your own website or something, you might get some customers find you, all right, but you have to be very, say it's a website, updating your website all the time. That's how you get good SEO for anybody to find you. So that's a lot of man hours doing that, you see. So you tend to have to put in a lot of hours, no matter what way you do things, to um, generate revenue, right? Which I hate even using these words because they're ghastly marketing sort of ways of looking at things. I need my. But on a site like a sales platform, basically like Etsy, for example, um, they're going to give priority to people who advertise with them, aren't they? And if you're not advertising with them, you know, and you don't understand how it works, you're going to be probably feeling terribly disappointed. And what am I doing wrong? Because nobody's coming to my shop or infrequently coming. But that's why, And you can get very locked in a trap of advertising, but not getting enough out of the advertising. Because I found on Etsy personally that I had to I did a couple of advertising campaigns within Etsy, right, to test this to see if their advertising is any use. So I tested it out, and a couple of different times a year I tested it, and I found that it worked out each time I did it. It worked out that I needed about 1,000 visits to my shop to generate one what I would call an inquiry. So that's not necessarily somebody asking you for something, but it's a view with, a possibility of somebody maybe being interested, because it might be a view and they might come back again, or they might express an interest in buying something, and even at that stage they may or they may not buy, you see. But 1,000 views, you've got to pay for 1,000 views before um, that can happen. So if you're not expecting that, you can get a bit freaked out because you think that, like, oh, here's 5 or 6 people visiting, I'm going to start selling loads of stuff. It doesn't really. You have to get a lot of visits before anybody starts buying. So now, you know, you could. I mean, somebody could turn up and they want to buy something the minute they turn up, but it doesn't always work like that. But so they do it in blocks. You say you pay a fiver, and you're paying for every click that somebody has on your shop. And click doesn't mean a sale, does it? So you're not necessarily going to sell, but it's kind of if you're not in, you're not going to win. But they do put pressure on you. They kind of keep saying, "Oh no, stay in there a bit longer, advertise a bit longer. You'll get more clicks the longer you keep your advertising campaign alive." And I have found that's not true. Now, somebody else can come along and say, oh, yeah, no, you're wrong. It does work. But for me, it didn't generate anything extra and it was just a waste of money. So every so often I do a short campaign, a short burst campaign, say for Christmas or something, I might do a campaign. I haven't even done a campaign for these ones yet. Uh, it was more a case of I wanted to get them up the shelves. I wanted to have a range of print um, and wearable prints for people. Um, but like I wasn't in a huge hurry to get millions of views because I'm kind of gone a bit lackadaisical about sales at the moment. I might do a campaign sometime, but you kind of have to decide what's a good time. Do you wait for some sort of a holiday, or um, is there a time of year for your goods, your seasonal stuff? And that might be where research comes in, right? There are a lot of tools online for marketers that are research tools, um, things like, I think it's called Ask Your Audience. I used to use it a lot. That you put in search terms, right? And it'll give you return volume for how many people are searching for particular things. And I find that very useful because you don't necessarily, you haven't necessarily guessed correctly about what your customer wants or your audience wants. And although I said I don't really, once I get what I want in the product, I'm happy. It's still, you still want to phrase the thing right in a way that your customers understand, don't you? You know, you don't want to befuddle people completely. Like if I'm sitting here with this sort of Victorian sensibility and nobody understands what the product is or does, that's not great, is it? Like, what's the point of having it out there in the world at all? So just to, bear in mind some of those ideas. So deadlines, I was talking about deadlines last time, and I've set myself a deadline for this one. That's a pretty random deadline, but it's Midsummer's Day, which is, I think it should really be the 21st, but I think the solstice is a movable feast. It marks the solstice, marks the longest amount of daylight of the year. So it's like the height of the summer, really. Yeah, isn't that extraordinary? How fast the year goes. But it's actually the midsummer is the 24th, I think, when it's celebrated, and Christians celebrate it as the feast of Saint John, and fairies celebrate it by ringing their little fairy bells, which are the fuchsia. Because all the fuchsia are out. So you see, I'm not putting in loads of detail on this. I just want to know that I can then work over this, and hopefully all this is rubs out very easy, see, because I can go into it with watercolor and my watercolor pens and keep working it up, working it up. And hopefully I'll get a nice subtle little number. And then if you're wondering about the writing, this writing, I'm not good at this. I'm just saying, I won't be saying this, I'm not good at this, but like we're all just learning, aren't we? Life. But this kind of fancy writing, I think it was last year or even the year before, I started trying to learn how to do copperplate writing. So that's what that's called, copperplate, and it's a handwritten sort of thing. So that's very much the look of my stickers that I'm going for, that hand done look. And in terms of the marketplace I've chosen for them, I did say this the last time that I like Etsy because that is its market. So any customer on Etsy really gets it. If you're doing a very hand drawn kind of look, they get that because they're cool with kind of artisan, arty kind of product. So it's you're selling it in the perfect place, you see. And I have run out of time. So if anybody has any kind of design questions um, for me about anything that you think I might be able to answer, I'm only too happy to answer them. And don't forget that last week's live was on design as well, designing the other stickers. So hopefully that's got information you find useful in it as well. If there's any products you want to design yourself for your own arty creations, just because if you're making art, or it doesn't mean you have to um, make printed goods, but it can be an interesting thing to get into if you like illustration anyway. And if you like hand done illustration, there are quite a lot of digital products out there, but I haven't seen as many old school hand drawn things out there. A lot of digital artists trying to add little hand drawn looking twists, but things that are produced entirely hand drawn. Um, that's quite nichey in its own right, which I like. Um, perhaps it's just because a younger audience doesn't remember very well a time when all kind of things like these frontispiece plates for books that you stuck in happened. But I think they do very much get the pre-Raphaelite sort of aesthetic, and they do get fairies. you know. Um, and then next week on the live, I might be still working on design things, but I mean, I'm sure you don't want to see design stuff forever. So next week on the live, what I propose doing is, because I'm doing a lot of botanical stuff at the moment, uh, I'd love to have a go at doing flowers, and I will provide the reference for you again. I found a nice photo of roses on Pexels, so I have that as a reference photo for us. So that's what we'll work on next Friday. And it should be a good exercise because it's a good exercise in terms of drawing and nice fun in terms of colour as well. There isn't a huge amount of colour in it, but it's very good for a good exercise for looking at tones, tonal analysis in colour, just using very few colours, but trying to get the tones bang on. So I think we'll enjoy that one as well. And hopefully you enjoyed today's one as well. And it was lovely seeing a face I haven't seen for a while in the chat. That was lovely. And I'm glad you seem well, you know. Um, so thanks for joining me. I enjoyed myself, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. And see you again soon. Take care.